So let's get started with the training, the presentation. We'll be together for, well, at least 2 or 3 hours. I'd ask you if that is possible to be interactive. You are allowed to ask me questions via chat, or you can ask me questions if the owner of the meeting allows that by speaking up. And have some interaction. So that's certainly one of the options. We are recording this session actually, and we will be doing a redelivery in June. That is good to know, I think, because for sure the redelivery in June will be an updated version of what I'm about to present and share with you today. And will probably be better, more complete, and also based on your feedback, I might be changing things. So it's good to know that there will be redelivery already just because of the slides. So make sure that you, that I know you. Help me to LinkedIn if you want to. Send me an email. Let me know that you were attending. And I will make sure that you also receive the slides of the next redelivery, or you could even join the redelivery in June. That is certainly worthwhile, especially also because, as I just said, there is changing so much. Things are being updated. Also myself, I'm really into learning mode. I'm also on a daily basis learning a lot about the new things, not just in security, but in Microsoft in general. Okay, that being said, let's get started. So this is a training of about 2 hours, 2.5. We might have a break after 1 hour. Let's see whether we do that. Let me know if you need a break. But this is a session that is going to cover many topics, and I've made the choice to cover it in a structure based on the solution plays that Microsoft has in place that I will be discussing in a minute, specifically for security partners. You are a security partner, you as a CSP, a cloud solution provider, and you are for sure also busy making the security better of our customers. And especially these days, in the age of AI, this has become even more important than it was already before. And that certainly is one of the topics, AI, in the context of security, as you will be seeing. Not just because the co-pilot for security, but because of Microsoft using AI everywhere, and specifically in their security solution stack. Okay. Myself, well, I'm not going to read all this. I've been in the Microsoft ecosystem since 1999. That's when I started as an FTE at Microsoft. I've been working at Microsoft as an FTE 17 years. I left Microsoft in 2016 because I wanted to focus fully 100% on what I loved most at my job at Microsoft, which is evangelizing people, training people, communicating in general, training people. And at the end of the day, what makes me happy is that I can make you successful. If I'm able also today to trigger at least one thing with you that you take with you that allows you to make your customer happy, by leveraging something I talked about, by introducing something to you that you want to learn more about, that is what gives me energy. So making sure that you are successful by the knowledge I be able to share. I still work for Microsoft as an independent consultant one day per week. And apart for the other 4 days of the week, I do presentations for TD SYNNEX, for instance. I also coach partners on multiple domains. And as you see, I'm active in quite some domains, mainly as a Microsoft certified developer. I try to be up to date, not just on security. That's just one of the many topics I love to talk about and I love to learn about, but also certainly everything related to Azure, specifically Microsoft 365, the Power Platform, and even Dynamics 365. but then I'm talking specifically about the customer engagement ops. Okay, that being said, I love to start my presentation always by having a top-down approach. Microsoft is a platform player, is active in multiple what they call solution areas, and per solution area they have what they call solution plays. And as you will see, the structure of the presentation today is based on the solution area for security, specifically based on the 6 solution plays for security, not only those that Microsoft put forward for small and medium business, but I will be covering all 6 solution plays as good as I can as part of this training. Now, what do I mean with solution areas? Well, it's simple. You might already be aware of this, and probably as a partner you should be aware of this. There are indeed 5 solution areas. The most well-known is, of course, the first one, the modern work solution area. That's the one where we typically talk about Microsoft 365, about the Microsoft 365 apps, of course, but especially when we talk about the Microsoft 365 subscription, we typically end up talking about security these days. Next to that, there is, of course, business applications. There are 2 specifically related to Azure. One is the Azure infrastructure one, and the other one is the one related more to data and, of course, based on all that, artificial intelligence. We will be focusing on the security area, the solution area. And as you can see, per solution area, Microsoft typically talks about solution plays. Again, we will be focusing on security, the last one, but even if you zoom in on everything related to security, you come to see this from left to right, is that under modern work, as I just said, there is a solution play which is called the Secure Productivity with Microsoft 365, which of course is about Teams, about SharePoint, about Word, Excel, you name it, all the apps you typically use, you know very well, as part of Microsoft 365. But at the end of the day, it's about secure productivity, secure product collaboration. And the solution play is about all the resources you as a partner can leverage to train yourself, to get ready, to go to market, to do marketing campaigns, to demos, to do presentations, to do actual implementations, everything related to going to market, in this case to with modern work, so the modern work solution area, specifically related to security, can be found as part of the solution play. Now, I'm only mentioning here the solution plays for small and medium business, but as you can see already here, if we zoom into security for SMB, there are actually only 3, the first 3, threat protection and secure productivity, that's those that I will be discussing in a moment, and actually there's an error on my slide. The threat protection is correct, but the second one here on top should not be secure productivity, but should be data security. Very important. So this is an error on my slide. So the 2 SMB-focused solution plays that we will be covering also today are threat protection, and the other one is indeed the data protection one. As you can see, the migrate and secure Windows Server and SQL Server and Linux estate is also there, and it is being shared with the solution area Azure infrastructure, where you see the same solution play. But my point of this slide is there are 6, so also the non-SMB focused one, there are 6 solution plays. The first one is threat protection, the second, wrongly specified here, is data security, and then the 4 others, which are not being positioned by Microsoft as SMB focused, but they are very relevant still, is first of all modern SecOps, multi-cloud, advanced identity, it used to be called advanced security in the past, and security co-pilot. What I will do to make this even very clear to you, I will go to my demo machine in a moment and actually will show you where you find these solution plays. And I will make sure that you understand very well what it allows you, what it provides you as a partner to go to market. And I will do that as part of the Microsoft Security Partner Portal. And here you see it already. I will switch to my demo machine to make it even clearer to you. If you go to that page, I will do that in a minute, you see again all six solution plays. Now, let me zoom in and make it more clear by going to my demo machine. This is my demo machine. This is a nice background indeed. And on my demo machine, I'm going to open a browser window, this browser window. I'm going to close it to make it clean. And on this browser, I will go to transform. That's how I want you to go to the portal specific to, yeah, it's a typical thing. Let me hold this thing. Sometimes I have this. So let me close this fully. This, not sure why. So close this screen, voila, and open a new one. And I go to transform.microsoft.com, like this. Not sure why this is. It's like, it's not normal. Normally, if you go there, you should see something else. It's not the first time. Yes.
Sorry for interrupting, Magnix here to the SYNNEX. I have sometimes the same issue. What can help is opening your browser in how shall I say, an in private window.
Yeah, it's strange. Yeah? I'm going to do that. Okay, let me do that. Why not? Then you have the full experience. If I go to transform.microsoft.com, yeah, that's actually the page where you should go. I'll need to sign in then, of course. Yeah. And you sign in with your Microsoft, with your work account, actually, the one that you use for work. So in this case, in my case, this is this one. Voila. Okay, the authenticator, voila. Let's do that. Voila, we love this, right? And let's stay signed in, voila. And you get to see this portal. And what I will see here are multiple things. There are partner portals. There are actually 5 of them. And one of the things that always confused me is that the one for security is not showing up here. It is, as you will see, part of the Modern Work for Partners. So if you go, and I will do that to the Modern Work for Partners portal, over there, I will be able to switch to the security partner portal, as I will do in a minute. But before doing that, it's worthwhile mentioning that next to the Modern Work for Partner, which is actually the best one of all of them, there is also one for Power Platform, and there is also one for related to readiness in general, which I absolutely also recommend checking out. The Azure for Partners is also existing, but I don't like it too much. It's certainly worthwhile. And if you activate it in Dynamics 365 Partners, that is certainly also a good one. I don't like the one for Azure very much, but then again, certainly check that one too. Furthermore, below, there are multiple other things. One of them is this Microsoft Customer Digital Experience, or CDX. That's certainly also an interesting one to check out, because on that place, you will be able to find all kinds of demo resources, tenants that you can activate for a month and so on, including scripted demos and so on. But then again, what I want to do is go to the Modern Work for Partners. And actually, for some of you, this will not new. For some of you, this will be new. Well, let me tell you this. If you ever need to do something for a customer, prepare a presentation, do a demonstration, you don't know yet how to do the pitch, you are looking for a good messaging framework, you're looking for good slides, you want some structure, This is the place where you'll find actually everything. When I prepare for a training, when I prepare for a customer meeting, I typically go to this place, to this site. And again, here you can then still switch to the other portals, and one of them is the security for partners. That's what I found strange. Is the security for partners was not accessible directly from the Transform website. You need to go first of all to the modern work for partners and then go to the security for partners, which I will do. If you go there, you will typically then end up on the site that you already saw in my slides. And what you see there indeed are the 6 solution plays, the 6 actually sales scenarios. In Dutch they say draaiboeken. I don't know how they say it in French, but typically the full description of how you go to market for each of these basically scenarios. And as you saw on my slide, the threat protection and data security, these two, I will be zooming into each of them in a moment, are being positioned as the ones that are important for SMB. Now, how do I know that? Well, in the menu here on top, you can also go to solution plays. Again, you see the 5 solution plays. That's just another way to navigate to each of these solution plays. But in the partner go-to-market, you can click on what they call the sell through CSP. Now, this initiative, this training is meant for cloud solution partners. It's meant for you, and is very much focused on SMB. If you click on sell through as a CSP, oh, I need to sign in again. Again, strange. Okay, that's because, of course, voila. If you do so, what you see here is yet another page. And on this page, you see only 2 solution plays. What I said, the threat protection solution play and the data security solution play. So these links actually go to the exact same pages that you will see if you click here, threat protection and data security, which we will do in a moment. But here you can actually see that when we are talking about selling through as a cloud solution provider, you typically want to focus on these things. And over there, you can then see, for instance, specifically for SMB, for CSP business, actually. First of all, kind of on a learning set videos, which I certainly recommend watching, especially if you did not yet do the Azure security fundamentals, which is it's Azure. Yeah, it's the SC900 exam. If you probably know what I mean, the SC900 exam of Microsoft. This one, yeah, not the Amazon one, but the Microsoft certified security compliance identity fundamentals. You typically will see that the content for preparing for that exam nicely aligns with the information that you will be finding here. So you can download all the videos, and you can actually, no, you cannot download the videos, you can watch the videos, and you can actually then download all the slides. It's actually one slide deck that you can download that is actually meant as like the one and only presentation that you will want to master when going to market from a threat protection, mainly a threat protection perspective, less from a data protection perspective. To me, this is a little bit strange that they only have one training set, very much only focused on threat protection, not at all focused on data protection. That is to me a little bit strange. But then again, threat protection is probably even more important, is even more common, is even more general to go to market in SMB than data protection. But still, I think data protection is an important one. Furthermore, you will see like all kinds of incentives. You will see more presentations and even flyers that you can leverage, especially for positioning E5 security suite. As I will mention, as I will discuss in a moment, when you see E5, you probably think, oh no, no E5. We are working in SMB space, not in enterprise space. But as I will introduce to you, there is indeed this Microsoft security E5 add-on that is available since actually 2 months now. An add-on which is available on top of Business Premium. I will discuss that in more details later. And then all kinds of things related to upselling again towards the E5 security suite. Again, this is mainly about the add-on on top of Business Premium to have actually the full security suite as part of Business Premium, which is also nicely set here. So again, you'll find a presentation deck over there and stuff like this. Actually, the presentation, this one, with all the videos that you can download from this link, I did do the download, and is actually this presentation. It's just for your information. It's a presentation introducing actually how you can go to market from a security perspective, mainly focused on threat protection, and it mainly discusses indeed the solution, which you see all here. Okay, that being said, I actually rather want to go to the homepage, this one. And from there, I will want to discuss each of these topics with more detail. And let's zoom in, for instance, on the one related to threat protection. And what you will find over there are indeed all kinds of things like product and solution presentation, marketing materials, blog and communities, and readiness training. Before I zoom into that, it's always interesting to see how each solution play relates to which products. As you will see here, the hero product in the context of threat protection is, of course, Microsoft Defender, more specifically Microsoft Defender XDR, which will be discussed. And Microsoft Defender XDR is actually the combination of endpoint, Defender for endpoint, Defender for Office 365, Defender for identity, Defender for cloud apps, and that is all being discussed here. Sentinel is also there, as you will see. Now, if you zoom in onto the product and solution presentations, what you will see there is indeed all kinds of presentations, and the one that I've leveraged as part of this training is the first one, the threat protection solution play pitch deck. As you can see, there is also one more specifically zooming into the XDR, the Defender XDR, which is of course also discussed in my presentation, the identity one, the Office 365, the cloud apps, and the one related to endpoint. Once more, don't panic. All these topics are covered in my presentation in a more structured way. I started from this deck. I actually downloaded this presentation, which is this one actually. I have it here. This is this presentation. So the threat protection, it's a slide deck of 100 slides, which actually discusses how threat protection can be done using the Microsoft 365 solution, which includes, of course, a lot of security-related services, more specifically the Microsoft 365 XDR solution. And that is all discussed here. So voila, this deck is one of the many examples that you can download. The same thing you'll see if you go, for instance, to data security. For data security, the second most important one, especially in SMB, and I think that is correct. And there you see it's very related to Purview. So as part of this presentation, we'll talk a lot about Microsoft 365 XDR and Microsoft Purview. And as part of Microsoft Purview, you have actually 3 big products, or solutions as they're being called. The first one is information protection. The other one is data loss prevention, which is actually part of information protection solution. And you have the insider risk management. All these will be discussed as part of this presentation. But you see, from the data security perspective, also, for instance, Security Copilot is being mentioned here. Just saying that depending on your perspective, depending on your scenario, it's not a one-to-one relationship. For instance, if you go to, let me go to another solution play. If you go to, for instance, modern SecOps, that one is clearly very related to Sentinel, but of course, it is for the depth scenarios, most importantly, again, very related to Defender XDR. I will be covering that also. Again, you see slides here for each of these topics, and I didn't mention it, but you have marketing resources, you have links to blog posts that you will want to follow, and you have resources for you to learn more and to get deeper in the things. Yeah. Again, we will focusing. Well, I will be discussing each of them. We will be focusing first of all on the first two, which is threat protection and data security. The other ones will be mentioned too. Take, for instance, multi-cloud. Multi-cloud, for instance, is very related to Defender for Cloud. Microsoft Defender for Cloud is one of the best kept secrets still at Microsoft, I think, which is not well, known, I think, still by most of us, most of the CSP partners, let's say. And even it's not a service that Microsoft promotes specifically through CSP based on what you see on the slides here. It's a very important one. And again, you see here each time the presentations, the marketing resources, the blog community, and the readiness resources available to you. So voila. If there is just one thing that you want to remember from now and you want to leave the training, feel free to leave. Make sure that you understand this structure. Keep this structure in mind. When you need to prepare for a presentation for a customer, for an internal presentation for colleagues, go there. You'll find each time the key presentation for each of the topics. And what is nice about these presentations is that, take for instance the one here related to multi-cloud. That is actually this one. Is that it's each time a deck. This one is a deck of 40 slides. And in the deck, you will always find screenshots, of course. And you typically find speaking notes. If you go to some of the slides, you will also see speaking notes. So it's quite interesting to see how you can leverage these presentations just for your own learning purposes. Well, that being said, let me go back to my slides. So I did create a slide deck based on the many resources I found over there. And I think that's what I absolutely recommend you do too. By the way, the link you see on top is just an also known as .ms short link, let's call it. MSFT Security Partners will nicely bring you immediately to the securitypartners.transform.microsoft instead having you to go to transform.microsoft.com. But that's a small detail. And again, I did create some slides on what I just showed you. So everything is nicely available for you in the slides. There you see the link that brings you to the threat protection. There you see then the link that brings you to data security. You know the drill. So that's actually what I showed you. Okay. All right. That being said, this is very important structure. With this structure, you should be able now to know and how to go to market, how to leverage and to find exactly what over and where. And the other one was actually, if you go to this to this site here. You could also go to the one for CSP security business. And once more, there you'll find the two solution plays that Microsoft puts in front, especially for the CSP business. Okay. That being said, let's go and start with threat protection, the first solution play. Probably the most important one, the most used one, even while I think they're all 6 important. It's quite difficult these days to talk just only about threat protection, especially the second one, data protection, given the world of AI, given Copilot more specifically, as you will see. Purview more specifically as a product has become so important these days. Even if you're not really focused on security, but if you're really focused on modern work, on Microsoft 365, on Teams, on Copilot Chat, of course, automatically this brings you to Purview, as you will see. But then again, before we talk about Purview, before we talk about data security, let's talk about the more general topic of threat protection. Now, in the context of threat protection, there is, of course, this reality we live in today. And the reality, first of all, is that the cybercrime economy continues to democratize tooling and services. The tooling and the resources and the knowledge available to cybercrime people, let's say, is incredible. It's a real economy. There was a statement, I think, from Marnix training some weeks ago. I think you said it, Marnix, that the economy of cybercrime is a big country, if you would compare it to a country. So it's a big economy, and it's a very dangerous world that is full of tooling and knowledge and services. Actually, you can pay for to actually harm customers at the end of the day. The attacks that we see today, like ransomware, are increasingly targeted. In the past, it was more random. It was typically mainly focused on large banks, large enterprises. But these days, because of AI, because of automation, because of the incredible tooling which is available with automation AI, they can do very targeted things, and at the same time, in parallel, do it for multiple organizations at the same time. And it's a crazy world. And attack surface is expanding, and attackers are adapting quickly. What I mean with attack surface is expanding. First of all, organizations become more digital. Organizations, our customers, become more dependent on digital, on online, on the cloud at the end of the day. And certainly today with artificial intelligence, and with the surface, I mean not the surface computer, but the attack surface actually is very online, is very in the cloud. It certainly includes the many devices that we all use, which are connected in the cloud. It's a very edgy world also. And with AI, it becomes even more dangerous, because AI is certainly technology that can be used by cybercrime people to actually find information, to use information against you. So the attack first phase is even much bigger than in the past, which makes it even more important that we defend ourselves. And that's actually the big challenge. And that's the point here. Because of this complexity, we typically end up using multiple tools, multiple security tools. And the more tools we use, it's not just because of the number of tools that it's become costly, but also because of the complexity which is brought by using multiple point solutions, multiple security tooling, that typically is not really well integrated, that is typically very specialized in in helping you in specific areas, but that's actually the big problem. The advertisers typically think in graphs. They typically attack you in multiple domains, identity, data, networking, and they find what they call an attack path at the end of the day to steal data, to install ransomware and so on. And in order to actually discover these kind of attacks, you need to be monitoring multiple domains, and you need to be able to relate the many alerts from the multiple domains and do pattern recognition in order to recognize that an advertiser is active in your environment. And while doing so, you need to be able to protect yourself immediately, because they can harm you these days basically in minutes. In minutes, and that's what makes it so hard. The speed in which it typically takes an attacker to access private data from phishing is only 1 hour. So once an attacker somehow through phishing, for instance, gets into your organization, within an hour, within 2 hours, or within 1 hour and 12 minutes, they are actually accessing your private data, are accessing actually those things that you do not want them to use against you, to steal from you, to block, to encrypt, and that's actually the reality. It is being said that a typical attacker, they take the time to get in. They typically, traditionally, they try to get in via the weak spots, typically via phishing, and then they typically do what they call reconnaissance. They take time to understand your environment, to understand your vulnerabilities, and they might be in, and they, as I say, probably are already in, and they might be in for 9 months, but from the moment they decide they want to harm you, that is actually something they can do in minutes. That is the whole point. And while in the past, typically it took them easily months to do the lateral movements into your organization, because of the technology they have available today, that typically can go faster than in the past. Already just checking into the password attacks and comparing last year with 2023 from a pure Microsoft perspective. Here you see 7,000 attacks, not per month, not per day, but per second. Probably if Microsoft would share this information today, it would probably be much higher already. But 7,000 attacks per second just on password attacks is mind-blowing, and that is a reality we have to live with. And then the sophistication of the threat actors also got much more higher than before. Again, some figures there. Now, the challenge for us to protect our customers, or the challenge for our customers to protect themselves with our help, is that they have been using tools. There are already many tools available in the market. You are certainly positioning tools to help yourself, to help your customers. But the reality is that these tools typically are very fragmented, are not integrated, are typically very specific to a specific workload, are specific to EDR. While again, today, we typically need XDR solutions and solutions like SIEM solutions. We will discuss in a moment. SIEM for going really broad in actually monitoring your digital estate. And then you need XDR tooling that goes very deep in every single domain that typically is important for us from a Microsoft perspective, and automatically is able to do pattern recognition for attacks taking place. With all that, there is a source. I don't know exactly, I didn't read it, but it would come down to this 4 million cybersecurity professionals needed in order to protect us against this reality, and that is also mind-blowing. And especially as an SMB, you typically do not have a specialist in-house, a cybersecurity professional in-house. So they need you, they need us to do that, and it is a challenge for us. And with all the regularly updates and the regularly compliance that we need to go through, things get even worse in a way, but it's double. This actually helps us to position the solution that we are about to talk about. And also AI helps us to make sure that customers understand why security is really important. But the fact again is also that space, think about NIS2. Think about NIS2, for instance, is something that you cannot neglect, is not something you can ignore. And that is also largely evolving, and depending on the industry where you're active, depending on where your customers are coming from. So even when you're doing business from Belgium or Luxembourg, but your customers might be from France or Germany, depending on where your customers live, other rules will apply to how you will use their data. And that's just an example of compliance, about regulatory compliance, and things are updating there per country, and depending on where your users and your customers are from. We typically are not just focusing on Belgium anymore, I think. This makes it even more complex to follow. It's a very complex world, and as a cyber security professional, it has become much harder, 10 times harder to do your job than today. And again, that is because a typical attack, and I'll show one typical attack in a moment on the next slide, is an attack where the attacker typically finds an attack and kill chain that typically involves multiple domains. It typically still starts with phishing, for instance, email and collaboration, not just in email, but also more and more, for instance, in Teams. They typically attack endpoints where they will want to install things and start to take over stuff and start to do things in your place. They typically steal identities, not just user identities, but also service principals. And service principals is typically what is used by applications that run in your environment. And these applications typically have too many privileges, more privileges typically than they actually need. And that's why adversaries are typically not just looking for user credentials, but are typically looking for identities, service principals used by applications in order to steal data, in order to take over workloads. That is the reality. And once more, a typical security team, a typical security solution is very specialized in one of these areas. While a typical attack is happening over time also, and is typically happening by in multiple domains, and it's about being able to see it. It's about seeing the patterns. It's about seeing how the multiple alerts taking place in each of these domains somehow interrelate and somehow map to Mitchell attack framework. That I will discuss also. And that is the challenge. Huh? That's what is shown here in this slide. A typical attack kill chain is from an email collaboration perspective, a phishing mail, of course, with an attachment or with a URL that you click. It typically results in you installing or them installing some malware on your computer that takes over, that starts to do things, that starts to do harmful things on your endpoints, not just one endpoint. And from there on, it's doing what they call the reconnaissance. It's doing the lateral movements. It's finding what I said, the privileged accounts. It's finding the service principles. Is finding all kind of weaknesses in your environment that they can leverage to move laterally and actually at the end of the day extract or exfiltrate sensitive data, data of your customers, data that can be used against you, data that you need to run your business, or even fully bring down your business by bringing down your ERP systems, your CRM systems, or even your Microsoft 365 tenant completely. These are the risks. And once more, the data exfiltration, that is typically something that can happen literally in minutes. So once they are in, once they have been doing their lateral movements, once they have done their reconnaissance of your mailbox, of your device, your devices, your server backend systems, your cloud services you're using, how they are configured, which attack surface you left open, and so on. When they have done all these things, and once more, this can be done very quickly because of automation and the many tooling, sophisticated tooling there is available. But then again, still the stealing of the data, the exfiltration of the data, this is something that doesn't take much time. That's actually the easy part. So even if they're already in and they can get in and can move fastly to harm you, much faster than in the past, when they decide they will harm you, it takes minutes actually. And that is our challenge. We need actually a platform, and you need to read the slide bottom up. We need a platform that leverages XDR and SIEM. I'll discuss these things in a moment. Leverages AI, but most importantly, you need a platform, a unified platform that starts from really deep, comprehensive threat intelligence. And of course, Microsoft is well positioned, of course, in that space. Most of us, we use Microsoft 365. Most of us, we use workloads that somehow run in the Azure cloud or run in another public cloud and somehow is connected to the Microsoft world. And Microsoft is absolutely well positioned to see patterns, to see how actually the cloud is used by us, but most importantly, how the cloud is used against us by cyber criminals, of course. So you need actually a platform that has access to a lot of real-time threat intelligence. With real-time, I mean when things happen basically in the tenant of another customer in another country, immediately Microsoft is, of course, well positioned to see these things happening. And you need a system, you need a platform that can actually use that insight, that intelligence immediately to protect you against the harm maybe already happening as we speak at another customer. We need also a system based on that is constantly checking your attack surface, depending on how your environment is being used, depending on how your environment is evolving. Again, we use more and more cloud services, not just Microsoft cloud services, but a lot of third-party cloud services. And there's nothing wrong with that, of course. But we need a system where we can actually monitor, where we can not monitor, where we can actually check the security posture of everything you use, from the endpoints, from the services you use from Microsoft, and actually make sure that knowing where there are new vulnerabilities being discovered, documented, used by criminals, and immediately you need a system that allows you to immediately show you where you're maybe also in a bad position. And again, these things need to happen in real time, based on the threat intelligence that is constantly being updated. And then you have SIM and you have XDR. I think in one of my slides it's nicely positioned. I had difficulties in the past to understand how SIM and XDR is not somehow the same, because there is certainly overlap. The best way I understand it now, SIM is of course the abbreviation for Security Incident and Event Management, and it's actually about going as broad as possible, meaning not just monitoring your Microsoft 365 apps like Teams and SharePoint, and not just monitoring things like Copilot and monitoring what you use in Outlook, or what is happening in your Microsoft 365 environment, but it's actually also about monitoring the many other systems that you're using. I have a nice slide showing you how you can use. I'm talking here about the product Sentinel, which is a SIM, a cloud native SIM, as I will be discussing. Is a product that is actually being able to connect to virtually anything that is used in your environment and that can somehow produce logs or alerts that need to be interpreted, that might need to be correlated with things that happen at the same time in a completely other domain, or are happening multiple months later for the same user or the same device. You need a system that is able to correlate and to monitor all these things in an automated way. And that is this broad thing that you do with Sentinel, with the SIEM system. It's actually a system that is able to go really broad. And XDR, Extended Discovery and Response, is also about monitoring alerts and seeing correlations, doing pattern recognition and mapping them to typical attack tactics, trying to map what is happening in your environment to meter attack framework, document attacks, for instance, but specifically very deep, very focused on the typical workloads you have here. And that is, of course, about identity, about data, about your network, everything related typically with your Microsoft workloads. XDR, or we are typically talking here about the set of services that we will discuss as part of Microsoft 365 XDR, in turn typically connects to your Sentinel, connects to your SIEM system, where that kind of incidents or just alerts can be compared, can be analyzed, and can be correlated even with things happening in other systems. And in all that, AI is actually helping not just the cyber criminals a lot, but is actually helping us a lot. Because both in SIEM systems and XDR systems, it's about pattern recognition, it's about machine learning, it's about real-time, constantly analyzing analyzing patterns and actually discovering incidents, and if possible, even automatically respond and mitigate attacks while they are happening. The time is over where we can sit back and analyze logs, where we analyze alerts, and where we drink a cup of coffee and think about how are we going to stop this. While things are happening, you need a system that can immediately take action as much as possible, and where you, as a SecOps professional, actually can focus on the more important things to keep your environment secure. And the same slide is what you see here, and it shows the same thing with a little bit more detail. Again, read this slide from bottom to top. We need a comprehensive threat intelligence system that actually can analyze actually everything that happens in the world related to threats, security threats, and that is then typically the basis on which you then have a system that is capable in real time with the most up-to-date information to tell you where you are probably in a vulnerable posture, where you have an attack surface that is too dangerous, especially given the moment of the day, the moment of the year, the moment of what is happening in the world, the things that have just been discovered, because, once more, because of the tooling cyber criminals have, they can really take action, automate things at scale, leverage AI to attack you in a very focused way. They typically, in the past, it was like trial and error. Let's try this, let's try that. Okay, let's try this. Maybe we can get in this way. Maybe we can go through that user that might be not that secure, and so on. Yeah, these days they attack you in a much more automated, much more prioritized, and much more focused way than before. And they typically are in a position that they have more knowledge, more insight, more threat intelligence than the typical cybersecurity professional has. And based on that, including with AI, you have then the SIM and the XDR system that will do all this. You see words here that will come back, like SOAR, which is about a security, well, I forgot again. What is SOAR? Security orchestration, and the A and R, response, and the A is automated response. So sometimes Microsoft uses the abbreviation R, automated, and the R is response, and the I is investigations. So that if there is some things that look to be malicious, that look to be suspicious, you need a system that is able to see it, that is able to automatically start extra investigations to find more evidence, and that even goes one step further and starts to remediations without even involving a human to protect. That's what they mean with SOAR or AIR. And a SIM system is typically, or Sentinel is typically, both a SIM system and an SOAR system, by not just having a system that is capable of correlating alerts and seeing patterns, but a system that is automatically able also to orchestrate an automated response. And that's what I mean with SOAR. UEBA, it's another abbreviation you see here on the slide next to SIM. It's about user behavior analysis, end user behavior analysis. It's about finding and seeing anomalies in how a specific user, or even a specific application running with a certain service principal, is all of a sudden behaving differently, is all of a sudden doing things differently than expected. And it's just another example of XDR, where you see a system, or SIM actually, where you see actually a system seeing these anomalies, and because of the SOAR is able to immediately take action, maybe block that user or even disconnect the user from certain applications immediately. We will discussing some of these examples later. So all these things are what a modern, and that's actually the strategy of Microsoft, very high level, a modern security system from a threat perspective should do. It's not anymore just about a firewall, and it's not anymore just about an antivirus solution you install on a computer. It's about XDR, it's about SIM, it's about a system that leverages AI to automate as much as possible, to do it at cloud scale, very fast, actually, much faster than we as humans can do. And all this needs to be based on real-time intelligence that is also immediately checked with your digital estate and able to even proactively, not reactively, but proactively protect you against things that have happened or might happen, and so on. So this is actually what they mean. And all that needs to happen in for these domains, email or collaboration, let's say, endpoints, both client operating systems like Windows and Mac OS, but also mobile operating systems like Android and Android, of course, iOS, but also server endpoints. If we talk later about multi-cloud, one of the solution plays, then we typically will talk about Defender for Cloud. I will make sure that you understand Defender for Cloud very well. But Defender for Cloud specifically for protecting servers that might be virtualized in a public cloud or virtualized in your own on-premises environment or co-located, whatever. You typically still have servers next to containers. These, especially the servers, are also endpoints, and the Defender for Endpoint that we will discuss later, there is also a version for that specifically to install on servers that will then work hand in hand with the Defender for Cloud, as I will discuss. Identities, of course, and these days security systems are very much typically fully identity focused. It's all about identities. So making sure that your identities are well protected is very important. You're using more and more typically all kinds of cloud apps, and you have all kinds of workloads, data related workloads, with many more workloads that need to be protected. And once more, we need a system that is able to, in real time, detect things that are happening on the right. And if possible, think about R and SOAR, take action and automated respond and mitigate and make sure that things won't get worse than they are already. And based on that system, you need a system that it's like a loop that automatically brings more intelligence for your environment, and that also will start to do or recommend you do things in a more proactive way by preventing your environment. So it's a system that high level, what we describe here is actually the combination of XDR and SIM. Once more, SIM is a broad approach, and probably most of our customers don't need that. But SIM, specifically the product Sentinel, which is also discussed in one of the 6 solution plays. We have a solution play specifically talking about that, the modern SecOps solution play, where Sentinel is the hero product, as you will see, in combination with Microsoft Defender XDR, which is more discussed as part of this part of the presentation. Now, SIM is actually, I repeat myself, I have a nice slide on that in a moment, is actually a system that can connect to virtually any digital enabled system. It can even be your Windows with IoT, checking whether a window is open or a door is opened and closed. It can even be an IoT sensor in whatever that produces some kind of signals, some kind of alerts that need to be analyzed, that need to be checked for anomalies that then can be correlated with maybe other anomalies, with other alerts actually, and that the system based on that can decide that action is needed. And XDR is then at the level of the specific workloads, specifically, as you will see, Microsoft. But I was going to set a Microsoft 365 Defender because Microsoft 365 Defender is the old name of what is called today Microsoft Defender XDR. They changed that name last year, I guess, but we'll come back to what that actually is. You see in the middle, indeed, Microsoft Security Copilot. We have a specific solution play only talking about Security Copilot, and that's the one I will end with today. In this context, both of SIM and XDR, it's nice tooling, and it's a nice tooling that, especially with R and SOR, is able to automate investigations and automate remediations for you. But then still, Security Copilot can go much further than just that and help you to decide things faster. And if you decide to do things, allow the Security Copilot do it for you, as you will see. Now, and here you see it, it's about whatever cloud, whatever multi-cloud environment. It can be on-premises, it can be a server, it can be a mobile operating system. Whatever environment we talk about needs to be monitored through XDR for the most important workloads, and there you have a very specialized approach, and SIEM goes broader. So have a look at this like this. Yeah. Then let's focus on XDR first. And XDR, what we typically mean here, the product or the service or this. Well, it's not a product actually. It's not even a service. It's actually a set of services that are being positioned together and that also are accessible through one single portal, the Defender XDR portal. And you can go to that portal by going to security.microsoft.com, and then you'll end up in the Microsoft Defender XDR portal. The Microsoft XDR portal brings together actually 6 important services. And each of them will be discussed in a few slides. One of them is Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. It's a service that is actually monitoring your endpoints, including server endpoints actually, but typically monitoring the mobile operating systems you're using, the mobile devices you're using, your desktop operating systems, your PCs and so on. And this typically is about collecting alerts, collecting information, describing what is happening on these endpoints. And again, these alerts are being collected in the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint service. Now, another service is the Microsoft Defender for Office 365. It's doing actually the same thing. It's collecting behavior, it's collecting alerts, it's collecting logs, it's collecting information about how we as a user are using Teams, SharePoint, Outlook, and so on. And that again is a service that is collecting that information. And already these two go hand in hand, because Defender XDR, what is it doing? It's not analyzing these alerts in a siloed way by just checking the endpoint alerts or just checking the Office 365 alerts. No, it's already trying to correlate or trying to find alerts that clearly relate to the same attack that might take place by a cyber criminal, by doing pattern recognition and trying to find alerts that correlate and that clearly map to a well-known attack as documented in the MITRE attack framework. And the same thing goes for Defender for Identity. Defender for Identity is actually also a service that collects information about your identity systems. We think, of course, first of all, about Entra ID, but most importantly, since still many of our customers are using Active Directory, are using domain controllers, both in the cloud, in the IaaS deployment or on premises, and these systems need to or can be and should be, especially from a lateral movement perspective, it's a very important attack surface at the end. It's typically a place where we are very vulnerable. We need a system that actually also collects information about what is happening in identity system. And again, the alerts being collected at that level are then analyzed, and maybe the system sees patterns by correlating things that happen in endpoints, correlating it with what happens in your email inbox, for instance, and so on. And by doing so, you have a system. Remember the definition of the perfect system with this strategy of Microsoft that does these things in parallel and does these things in a very automated, AI-infused way by leveraging cloud technology. And Defender for Cloud Apps, I have some demo slides about that. It's probably not that well known still as a product, but Defender for Cloud Apps is again doing the same thing. It's collecting information about you using cloud apps. And cloud apps, I'm not talking about Teams and so on, but I'm talking about you might be using Dropbox, you might be using Facebook, you might be using whatever application that you need or that you use for your business purposes. And also there, you might and probably are using it without any wrong reason. But then again, it's part of your attack surface. It's part of a weak spot that you might have. It's part of something that a cyber criminal might get access to and might want to use against you. So monitoring your cloud apps usage, is also very important. And again, this will bring even more alerts and insights that need to be monitored and correlated, if possible, with alerts from other areas. And then the other services, the last one, first of all, is remember threat intelligence. You need a system, and through the XDR portal, you can have access to the system of threat intelligence, where you have very good, up-to-date, real-time information about threats happening in this world, documentation, and clear explanation how to protect against it and so on. Specifically, then indeed Defender vulnerability management. It's part also about Defender XDR, is then helping you to map that against your specific digital footprint and trying to figure out how the threats and the typical threats that are well known, how they might harm you, how and where you are vulnerable, and again, helping you to mitigate that, helping you to prevent that. That is also part of the solution. So these 6 services actually are all part of what Microsoft calls Microsoft Defender XDR, or was called in the past. And you can still see it in my link there. I put a link there from, because sometimes I give training on security fundamentals, and then I always put the link to the official documentation. And you can still see in the link that the old name is Microsoft 365 Defender. So the new name is Microsoft Defender XDR. I think it's a better name. because it clearly indicates that this is an XDR solution. And this, in combination with Sentinel, remember, can bring in even more insights, can bring in even more alerts, and allows a system to detect even more patterns and attack tactics used by cyber criminals. And in this context, you can and you will typically, and I have some screenshots about that later, have an embedded version of the security copilot, helping you to understand the investigations, helping you to understand the recommendation, and helping you to implement even recommendations, and allowing even do it by allowing the security copilot to do it for you, makes this system even better. And that's actually the AI part. Well, it's not that, just that, but that's a very important AI part of the full stack. Huh? And then I'm not going to go through all these slides, but because I discussed it already quite well at length in my previous slide, but for each of them, and also check again to the website I showed you. And in that website, remember, you had a presentation for each of them separately. You had one for Office 365 or Defender for Office 365. You had one for Defender for Endpoint, and so on. Huh? And again, here's some slides for Office 365. It's actually a system that builds on top of Exchange Online Protection. So there is already Exchange Online Protection as part of Exchange Online, as part of your Microsoft 365 subscription. But on top of that, that is this MDO Plan 1 and MDO Plan 2. We have indeed the Microsoft Defender for Office 365 Plan 1 and the Microsoft 365 of the Microsoft Defender for Office 365 Plan 2. We'll discuss later why Plan 2 is so important, and because this add-on, the security add-on, the E5 security add-on that we will discuss later, it's important to realize that you need Plan 2 to have this R functionality. What I mean there, what is also on the slide, for this automated investigation. So if a pattern is recognized, with Plan 1, you would just have an incident. Like, here is an incident. We did see some very strange things. We have been correlating these alerts, and we think it's this type of Mitra attack that is happening at this moment. And there it stops. That's Plan 1. It detects it, and it even recommends you and helps you and tells you what you could do to mitigate, to do further investigations. It gives you the tooling to do all that as part of the portal, but you need to do it yourself. With Plan 2, you have R, where the system can do extra investigations, finding more evidence, confirming that something is actually absolutely wrong, and even having an automated response and immediately block, even before you even are being notified about that it is happening through an incident, but have indeed a system that immediately blocks the harmful activities and giving you the time to do the things that are important. Keep that in mind while the Defender for Office 365, that is part, the functionality that is part of your Microsoft 365 Business Premium, is not providing you that. You need Plan 2. But the good news is Plan 2 is part of the E5 security add-on, which is now also available since 2 months, I think, as an add-on for Business Premium. Keep that in mind. Defender for 365. Here are some more visuals and some more explanation. Again, I see that like attack simulation training. It's again an example of something that is not part of Plan 1. You need Plan 2 for it. But again, good news, Plan 2 is part of the security E5 security add-on for Business Premium. And here you see a screenshot of what you then would be able to see in the Defender for Office 365 servers as part of the XDR portal. I'll show it in a moment. And then for endpoint, first of all, Defender for Endpoint, it might be confusing because as part of Business Premium, this product is called Defender for Business. Now, that is because Defender for Endpoint comes in Plan 1 and Plan 2 also. And what is nice about Business Premium is that there is like a Plan 1.5. It does not it's not called Plan 1.5. It's called Defender for Business. And it's actually a plan that includes features of Plan 2 and Plan 1. So it's actually better than Plan 1. That is also part of the X3 plan of Microsoft 365. But it includes E5 features as part of Business Premium. So that is good news. And that is indeed the Microsoft the Defender for Endpoint. And again, it's about, well, all these things you see here on the screen. It's about a system that is collecting information on your endpoints. It's collecting information about configuration of your endpoints in order to help you knowing where you are vulnerable. Yeah, it's detecting in real time things that are happening in your system in order to collect threat information that can be used by the system, by the XDR system, to do immediately, for instance, what you see here, automated investigation and remediations. It's actually making sure that the attack surface of your environment is as small as possible. It is using next generation protection. What I mean here is it's about leveraging AI. It's about a system that is using cloud-hosted AI services in real time to actually do clever stuff that you typically cannot do, like what you would be doing in the past with an antivirus product that would install some update of your database of signatures, of malware and viruses that needs to be updated, let's say, every month. Now, it's a system that is in real time, leveraging AI from the cloud, a cloud-infused AI, let's call it, to do clever things on in real time, doing these two things I just discussed. Endpoint detection and response is about detecting things and immediately responding. And there is even the option to involve Microsoft Threat Experts. That's actually an extra service that you can pay for, not meant for small organizations, of course, but it's important, it's interesting to know that Microsoft offers also these kind of services for you to leverage. Then the cloud apps, and the best way to demo is, or to explain it, is with a few demos. I did some screenshots. But it's actually a system to discover all the software as a service applications, all the, and you could call it, but I don't like the word in this context, all the shadow IT that is being used. Not all shadow IT that is being used is wrong. The fact is that people typically use all kinds of services, all kinds of SaaS services, also consumer-related SaaS services, to do their work, which is fine, but we need to know that they are using that. And again, because these systems, these SaaS services come with their own vulnerabilities, we need to know that they're using it. We need to know where they might be vulnerable, and we need to actually monitor again also these systems and collect alerts, collect signals from this system to intervene. The best way to show how it looks like, if you go to the security, no, these days you go to security.microsoft.com, you end up in the Defender XDR portal, and then through the menu, and you see it already, you see the endpoint, you see email collaboration, you see the assets through which you can do your vulnerability management for all your assets. But then you see cloud apps, and in the past cloud apps, there was a separate portal for that. But in the meantime, they also integrated the Defender for Cloud Apps, which is a CASB system, as it's being called by Gartner, a cloud access CASB access broker, security broker, and cloud app security broker. And this cloud security app security broker has as one of the fundamental features, which is actually part of plan 1 of that service, which is also part of the Microsoft 365 Business Premium, which is called the Cloud Discovery. It's actually a system that is capable of creating an inventory of all the apps being used in your environment by connecting to, for instance, your firewalls, by having also back-end integrations with many of these SaaS systems. It is able to analyze what you have. Here you see, for instance, all the discovered apps in that environment. You can filter by category, cloud storage, IT services, and then you can select any of these products, and you see it comes with all kind of information, the number of users that we see using it, the risk score per application. And typically, if you click on the risk score, I think it's in my screenshot later, you will be seeing why the score is lower or higher, and you can influence the score by specifying what you find important and not important. Here you see that I'm going to filter on, or I take an application, I can sanction it. Here you see a cloud app, Dynamics 365 web app, the CRM application, the sales application probably, yeah. You see that it's used by 44 users. You see the name of the users. You see the score. And you see here that you get a score per domain, like legal perspective, compliance perspective. And you can zoom into that to see why the score for security is 10, why the score for compliance is 10, and so on. And then you see each time how each of these services, SaaS services, is being evaluated. And depending on the product, you might sometimes see a score that is quite low, and that's not necessarily a problem, but it's important to realize that, and especially if you, because it's part of your attack surface, and that's what this tooling does for you. So it's a pure discovery part of the product, but it's doing much more than that actually. You see all the users, you see all the actions. You can also create a cloud discovery snapshot report, which is actually, as you see here in the screenshot, by connecting to one of your security appliances, and virtually any security appliance that is being used, that you sell maybe, that you use yourself, that you know very well, is typically in the list, and you can have a real-time connection with that one. Of course, then it's only monitoring all usage of SaaS applications through your corporate network. But remember, you don't need an appliance for that. It's not just about monitoring all the interactions with SaaS applications through your corporate network. It is able to connect or able to monitor these systems through backend integration too. You can configure uploads, you can add a data source and so on, all quite straightforward. There are all kinds of ways to connect backend systems and so on. Very interesting. Connected apps, and here you see that, of course, you can connect many of the apps. That's what I mean with Ignite, for instance, is there. DocuSign is there. WebEx, of course, is there. Box is there. Atlassian is there. Whatever typically a very popular application is available there, and you can connect these applications. And that's the very important point, because once they are connected, and this is a Plan 2 feature actually, we cannot just monitor who is using what, but we can also influence in session, decide in session in real time whether something works or doesn't work. You can gray out, for instance, the print button in Slack if you want to. If a user tries to print or tries to print a document that is HR related, for instance, based on sensitivity types that will be discussed later when we discuss Purview. So that kind of integration is typically to be set up through the connected apps that you see here. SYNNEX is there, everything is actually there. Again, this is a Plan 2 feature, and this is actually where it becomes interesting. It's not just anymore about viewing and monitoring these applications, creating a report about who is using what, but it's also about, okay, let's now also in real time start to intervene and start to activate, deactivate, actually do adaptive, when we talk about DLP, for instance, data leakage prevention, you can actually have a DLP policy that applies to one of these applications where we even decide in real time, a little bit like what you have in conditional access, depending on the riskiness of a certain user, and the riskiness on its own is then based on, again, this XDR system that sees things happening in real time, and depending on how risky a certain user is, we might all of a sudden apply a DLP policy in Salesforce that is only applied because of this risky situation in real time. So really in real time, immediately in session, in a SaaS application, block things in real time. That's how you need to remember it. Here you see that Azure, of course, can be one of them, can add the access policies. And actually, that's what I did myself. And this is one of the screenshots I created in the past for Salesforce. I created a demo in the past for Salesforce. And voila, that's a little bit and here you see an example with TikTok, for instance. And you could say TikTok is not allowed. You could even sanction it. It can go very fast, very deep. You can configure the metrics about all these things. Activity log per application. So of course, this for Office 365, most of it, but imagine that we have a connection with Salesforce. We would be able to monitor activity in Salesforce. And remember, these activity logs then are being part of the XDR solution. And there might be some activities, think about UEBA, end user behavior anomaly detection, that can actually be correlated with other alerts from other domains that might need immediate attention or might need immediate extra investigations and even remediations that are automated. That's the whole thing. You need a system that is doing all these things at speed, at cloud speed, leveraging AI. Oh, this is an example of file monitoring, for instance, how you can create policies, create a policy, how it looks like. Here, create a policy based on not any template. We will match a single activity. It's not even filled out. You could specify all kinds of activities, like a user is downloading or uploading a file to Dropbox, for instance. You could be able to specify that. And under certain situation, you might create an alert that can be picked up by the XDR solution, or you could even things to. Here, see all kinds of policy templates, like multiple failed user logon attempts to an app, new high volume app that is, for instance, downloading or uploading a lot to Dropbox, for instance, or your OneDrive, and so on. You have all kinds of policy templates you can activate for specific applications and so on. Defender for Identity, I already explained it. It's mainly to monitor your on-premises identity systems. It is something that is being used hand in hand with Entra ID, more specifically as part of Entra ID Plan 2. You have identity protection, where we identify in real time risky users and risky sign-ins in real time. But next to that, with Defender for Identity, the service, we also collect that kind of behaviors, alerts, actually, logs from your domain controller. If you still are using federation services instead of Azure Connect, for instance, it might be. Also, that service can be monitored with a sensor that is installed on that machine, on that service. And that is then being analyzed and correlated, possibly with alerts and things happening in other systems. See? And the other two are simple. I can explain them once more. Vulnerability management is all about knowing your digital estate, knowing your attack surface, and providing you recommendations to prevent attacks by reducing your surface, your attack surface, and helping you to do that as good as possible. And this is all based on the Defender threat intelligence. Here you see a screenshot that gives you very good documentation on, in this case, some typical attack that happened, good to loot, whatever that is. And it typically also indicates, it's not shown on the slide, how it relates to specific CVEs, of course, but how it relates also to a typical attack as documented in the MITRE attack framework. By the way, MITRE attack framework, I'm not going to discuss that here, but this is all about this. If I go to a browser here, it's if you look for a MITRE attack, you will get to this website. And there you see like the typical reconnaissance techniques, the typical initial access techniques. Let's take external remote, and then you see like documentation of this typical approach by a hacker. What the procedures are that that are being seen, and this is actually a big database of all possible attacks, how they typically happen, what people or attackers typically do, how you can mitigate, how you can detect it, and this is actually part of the XDR solution, that it knows how to do these things. It doesn't require you to be a specialist, knowing all these details and applying them. That's actually what this system does. It's actually using that kind of knowledge to recognize patterns that clearly map to MITRE attack techniques, tactics, and techniques used by cyber criminals. Voila. Here a screenshot for threat intelligence more, and again it shows you how each of the threats might be impactful for your environment. It's not just global knowledge, but it helps you to understand how harmful you are it's about the indicators of compromise. User can create projects that organize indicators from an investigation and contain associated artifacts and data. So it's very sophisticated. And then the portal itself, it's actually this. If you go to security, security. Yeah, let me do it in another. Otherwise, he will ask me again to log in. Voila. Security.microsoft.com. Yeah. It's actually this Defender XDR portal, and in the XDR portal, what you will see, of course, this is my environment. I don't really use that. Actually, I must be honest. You will actually then see the multiple domains, the assets for the endpoints. Yeah. Voila. Yeah, the endpoints, the email collaboration, the cloud apps, it's all there. And the exposure management, attack surface, everything is here. Also the alerts. Here you see a system that is collecting alerts and trying to reveal correlated alerts and correlate them into incidents and so on. It provides you this nicely organized, unified portal, which actually brings together all the things here on the slide. And again, some of the things require plan 1 and some require plan 2. But the good news is, with the Security E5 add-on available for Business Premium since 2 months, you have all of these things, and especially the automated investigation and remediations are the most important ones, I think, missing from just Business Premium. Yeah? Voila. And yes, we'll talk a little bit more about Copilot later, but the point here is that when we talk about the security Copilot, there is what they call, as you will see, a standalone version of the Copilot, security Copilot. But next to that, in all of these services, especially in the whole XDR portal, the Copilot, security Copilot is nicely integrated, helping you to like what you see in the next slide. You see here an incident, and for that incident, it gives you immediately a summary, a guided response. You could even start talking to the Copilot here and ask specifically how you could solve it, how you could use Python for it, how you could use PowerShell for it. You could even ask, can you do it for me? All these things typically require a lot of knowledge, experience, specialist experience, and yeah, that is actually where the Copilot can actually help you by talking to you in human language and doing these things, sophisticated things for you in a very professional way without having to pay a security professional for that. So it's an embedded experience. I have some demo slides here for the Defender portal, the Defender XDR portal. You see it a little bit here, an overview page. And you see how you can configure the portal to tell what you want to see it. And because it brings together a lot of things, and here I've activated actually everything. Yeah. Here I go to exposure management, vulnerability management. First of all, you get your secure score. It's being calculated based on how well in each of these domains, apps, devices, data, identity, you have been implementing recommendations from a preventive perspective. And this typically gives you a secure score. On the home page, you see, of course, a secure score. Here again, the secure score, also from a historical perspective, each time with recommendations for those things that are most important with details. And it's also in this context that the security Copilot can play a role, can help you to understand what it says and can actually help you to actually implement the recommendation. That's typically where we are going. Here you see just in an old screenshot how you implement it with links to documentation. But the next step, of course, is, wow, Copilot, do it for me, please. I'm not going to read all this. I trust you. That's what we are talking about. Historical perspective. And again, having this one is on recommendation to the self-service password reset enabled, is set to all. It tells you some advice, what the user impact is, and so on. Voila. Filters, and so on. Now, what I said, many of these things, and it was great to have Business Premium, because Business Premium, especially from the endpoint perspective, Defender for Endpoint, had something between Plan 1 and Plan 2, which was really great, especially compared to E3. You had, as a Business Premium customer, more feature than an E3 customer. But then still, these things related to automated investigation remediations were not included. And especially for SMB, that was important. That still is, and is even more important these days. And that's what is being announced, or was announced through the blog post where you see the post here. They have been adding the E5 add-on as an extra. I have the price on a slide later. And for each of these domains, they added features, and that's what you see here. I'm not going to discuss all these things, but the one I like most is, of course, in Defender for Endpoint Plan 2. I'm not highlighting it, but I should, is the, where is it? Defender. Yeah, also Defender. Yeah. The automated investigations. I don't see it. Where is it? Comprehensive endpoint detection response. I think that's the one which is including that one. So they have they add a lot of features. I'm not going to go into much detail, but for instance, the Microsoft Entra ID Plan 2 also includes the access reviews, for instance, and the identity protection, which allows you to have conditional access policies which take into account real-time information about certain users and about certain users in specific situations. At that moment, it might not be a risky user, but that user at that moment in time is doing a risky sign-in, or because of things we see happening through XDR, the system can conclude that there is an extra signal to take into account in the context of a conditional access. And that's just one of the examples. So this is the Plan 2 which was added. And from a cost perspective, if you would want to buy all these features, Defender Endpoint Plan 2, Office Plan 2. Plan 2 for Office 365, for instance, is indeed, for instance, these campaigns. The phishing campaigns, for instance, but I think most importantly, the AIR functionality, the automated investigation response. I think that's the most important one. And that's actually the one I was looking for. I was looking under endpoint, but I should have looked under Office, the Defender for Office Plan 2 features. The identity one, again, protecting your on-premises identity infrastructure, and the cloud apps on top of the discovery, because Plan 1 was already included. You have also now the whole system of where you can have cloud app policies, which nicely integrate with conditional access, to also have, again, real-time in-session interactions, policies taking place based on real-time information. And again, Entra ID Plan 2. If you would buy all these services separately, you would end up for this price, and the price for the E5 security suite is $12 per user. So don't underestimate it. But again, that on top of a business premium is, I think, the next most logical thing to add in order to protect a typical user in a typical SMB organization in Belgium, leveraging all these things. And once more, you might and you will probably already be spending that amount of money for other point solutions that are also doing XDR kind of stuff. The whole thing is that brings a lot of complexity, lack of integration, and that's actually the story that Microsoft tries to tell you here. You don't need to use all that. You don't need to pay it, but it's an available option that is now available for you on top of Business Premium that you will want. And that's here a nice summary of what you already have with Business Premium. Of course, conditional access is without any doubt in Business Premium one of the most important things you don't have in Microsoft 365 Basic or Standard. Business Standard, but you have it in Business Premium. Conditional access is the most important one. But on top of that, you have now the risk-based conditional access, but also the privileged identity management, the access reviews, IT governance, the many things. Same thing with Microsoft Defender for Office Plan 2. Think about automated investigation response. I think that's the most important one, next to the campaigns, the simulation campaigns. And then the third bullet here is related to endpoint security and advanced threat hunting. That is also, and the Defender for Cloud Apps. Remember, not just discovery, but also policies you can have applied automatically. Once more, a more nicer overview for your reference, all what you have with Business Premium and what you add with that. A question that you'll find online in the FAQ, does Business Premium Plus the E5 allow mixed license? And the answer is unfortunately no. You need to have all your users on E5 security in order to really have all the plans to, otherwise it will not be applied. Now, this is just one of the add-ons. It's probably, once more, the most important add-on on top of Business Premium. Later on, when I talk about data protection, I will be discussing also this add-on, which I think is another one that I think you will want to know about, and potentially in combination with insider risk management. You see, okay, it adds up, but I think especially these days with AI, most importantly with Copilot and so on, I think this certainly also makes sense to evaluate. But we'll come back on that when we talk about with less detail this topic. We still have 1 hour to go and go a little bit faster. I was well aware that I will spend most of my time in threat protection and less time in the 5 other solution plays, also because you know the drill now, you know where to find all the information. It's important to understand the Microsoft language and how they love to talk about the scenarios through solution plays and which ones are the most important ones. That's threat protection, of course, and indeed data security. Still, in threat protection, I've added some slides that I copied from the sources that I showed you, which again shows you very nicely what you have in E3, what you have in Business Premium, and you see with Business Premium you have more than what you have in E3. But on top of that, you could apply the E5 that we just discussed as an add-on, both on E3 or on Business Premium. And then you get indeed, it's just another view on the same information I just showed you. I like this slide, but that's why I included it here. Another slide which is very much appreciated. There are 2 parts in this slide. The bottom part, which I will be discussing when I talk about data protection, so ignore that one. And the top part, what it is showing again the same attack kill chain that we showed in one of my first slides. And here you nicely see how these XDR services nicely map to each of these areas where an attacker takes place. And you see, for instance, Defender for Identity related to lateral movements, and that's really what happens a lot. Lateral movements on your on-premises security infrastructure. That is what Defender for Identity can do, is actually also making sure that that is not a blind spot, that also what is happening at that level is taken into account as part of the full XDR solution. See? So that's a very nice way of looking at it as part of the presentation. Yeah. Okay. And now data security. Now we are a little bit faster. What I did here, I copied quite some of the slides, copy paste literally from the deck that I showed you in the first part. Some slides about data security incidents are widespread. 83% of all is more than one data breach in there, so it happens anyway. I think 83% is low. I think it's much higher. I cannot imagine a company that never had, even a very small company, even a company with 2 people. At some point in time, some data is leaked, even if it's not with malicious intent. It can be harmful, especially if it's not your data, but data about your customer. And that is dangerous, even if it's not with malicious intent. And the point here with the second point is insider risk management related. The typical thing to care about is about the insider risk. There is outsider risk, which is very related to most of it DLP policies, but there is also insider risk, both malicious intent and users that are neglective to security, to privacy in general, to IT maybe in general. And there is risk related with that, and you need to think about it. And with generative AI, this becomes even more relevant, and more IT leaders, people, managers, actually we, of course, realize that generative AI is actually, it's a force multiplier in a way, but also helping us to actually position a data security solution. And that is Purview. The Microsoft Purview portal, it's another portal. And I'm going to discuss only most importantly the data security part. But if you talk about Purview, it's about three things. It's about data security, more specifically, data loss prevention, insider risk management, and information protection. These three are the most important ones. When talking about data governance, about, you have data, and you could start to monetize data. You could start to become more proactive in using the data. And data governance becomes important there to do responsibly unlock value creation from your data. So Purview can help you with that. And data compliance, think about all kinds of regulations you need to comply with, your own regulation, your own policies, and actually making sure that you are compliant. For instance, there is in Compliance Manager, as part of Purview, there is a way to get the compliance score for NIS2, for instance. You can actually specify NIS2 and then see a set of what they call initiatives and policies that map to the NIS2 requirements and tells you exactly what your score is and tells you exactly what the recommendations are to be more NIS2 compliant. That's an example of data compliance. So here I will be focusing just on data security. That's actually the name of the second solution play. And there, remember, most importantly, when we talk about Purview, it's about multiple solutions. There are more than 20 solutions, but the most important solutions to start with are data, information protection, to name the first one, which is the most important one. Then secondly, data loss prevention, and then insider risk management, in that order. Actually, I should have changed the order. And then what they do in this slide here, give you all kinds of examples of what we mean with incidents in the context of data security. There are two kinds of risks. There is the external risk and the examples of internal risk. An example of external risk is that a user falls prey to phishing attack and compromises user credentials. Now, if a criminal gets your user credentials, they can actually steal data, compromise data, actually. That's a very simple one. And indeed, let me map it immediately. DLP policies is typically what you would be using there. And then for insider risk management, some other example, user copies a file to USB, then uploads to a personal Dropbox to take to a competitor. That's clearly data theft with malicious intent. That's the kind of thing that you will want to know to start with, and you need to block if possible. Another example in the middle is user neglectedly shares sensitive data in a generative app. You talk with ChatGPT, you have a question about IP that you found internally. There is probably no malicious intent, but when you start to do that with a shadow AI tool, let's call it, an AI tool not being managed, sanctioned by the organization, you might, in the case of ChatGPT, might actually give data to OpenAI that might end up in their training systems. The last one here is user deletes sensitive information before leaving the organization. So actually, with saboteurs intent, but also by taking away traces to disguise that you did something wrong is an example of something you typically want to. And they have all kinds of examples. They have like this example of Jane Doe. It's a woman, a lady, which has a principal/manager role in big companies, company A and B, and there have all kinds of situations. He collects proprietary info from multiple companies, leveraging their privileged title. She attempts to copy this info to an external hard drive, but was not blocked by DLP policy. So this is an internal user where a DLP policy is not in place, and where she is not being blocked in copying something to a an USB policy, a USB drive in company A. Now, there is a DLP policy. That's the point here. In this company, there is a DLP policy. She cannot do it, but she's still, the point number 3, on a loophole and uploads the sensitive content to her personal cloud storage. And she is able to do that in both companies that she worked for. And then in the middle one, she copies those files then from the cloud storage to the external hard drive at company B. She still is able to do things. Again, this is an example of something where we talk about a SaaS application where things are happening and it's not visible. And also there you will want to block that. Then she had inappropriate conversation and threatened her peers to hide her attack. So she might have a discussion with a peer, and she might threaten the peer in order to make sure that nobody knows about what she was doing. And then she suspects that one of her peers is still going to report about it. So she is going to delete some sensitive information to make sure that is not happening. So also that somebody is hiding that you did do something wrong is an example of something that you might want to prevent, or that you might want to see at least and get a report on. And the last one, she was terminated from both companies and her hard drive underwent an authority investigation. That's fine, but the sensitive data might not have been preserved automatically. So even if you do this authority investigation, so this is an example of not so good situation. And that's actually where we then position Purview, and where you see all kinds of things you can do. You can discover hidden risk to data wherever it lives and travels. You can protect and prevent data loss across the data estate, so including SaaS application, and you can quickly investigate and respond to data security incidents, so automated also. Now, this slide, again, don't try to read it all, but this is the most important thing. As part of Purview, you have, first of all, information protection. You have then data loss prevention, and then you have insider risk management. And the slide deck tries to explain these three, especially in combination, as I will explain in a moment, with adaptive protection. The idea of information protection is that you have all kinds of sensitive info types that you can create yourself, defining the kind of information you have in your organization, and have a system that discovers all this information and tells you where you are vulnerable. And you can actually create some kind of an discovery and some kind of an explorer view on all the data you have. This system comes also with what they call trainable classifier out of the box. So its system can automatically recognize all kinds of well-known document types and can tell you as part of information protection what data you have. And that's typically the first step. The second step is that you then start to create a data loss prevention, or that you start to create labels for that you allow people to assign HR labels, confidential labels, where you encrypt information based on the sensitive information types. You can even automate that on SharePoint, on Teams, and so on, that it is done automatically, or that users are getting policy tips in Teams or in Outlook, where they are invited, or in Word and Excel, they're invited to apply a label. Whether a label is applied or not applied, you still can have data loss prevention policies for having a system that at the runtime will block certain actions, certain things that you might define as not desirable. Again, that's typically all based on the Information Protection Foundation. And with insider risk management, it's really about not necessarily blocking things, but having a system that allows you to capture that there are insider risk things happening and that you want to report against it. Now, the thing with adaptive protection is, thanks to insider risk management, the system will a little bit like what you have with identity protection in an Enter ID identity protection, high risk, low risk. As part of the insider risk level, as part of the insider risk configuration, I have some screenshots about that. You might at real time have a system that decide, well, this user is in an elevated risk situation. Now, the nice thing is that's what this slide tries to show. If a user is because of your configuration with insider risk level, and you decide or you configure when that happens. It could be like when we see user downloading in 5 days a large amount of data that we never see him doing, you can configure that. Then he should go to an elevated risk. Now, that fact that he is in elevated risk can then be used in a data loss prevention policy. You say, well, if that is the situation, then this DLP policy will block that user from using Dropbox, will block that user from using OneDrive. While for all the other users, there is no issue. Or imagine that for some configuration, we say he's in moderate risk, we say, okay, then we still block Dropbox, but he can still override it, but will be required to say why he is going to override it. He needs to give a justification, which we also can then monitor and which is on record. So you have then actually the idea of inside the risk level is that you can have actually then DLP policies that are adopted, that are different depending on the real-time situation. The same thing for conditional access. Depending on your inside the risk level, I have a screenshot on that. Also in your conditional access, you can then actually decide whether you want to block access, for instance, or have the user, for the moderate risk example, have the user read the terms of use, that he is really invited to sign. You have read the terms of use. You are about to do something which is against the policy, but still, if you want to do it, fine, but here are the terms of use. And even in the data life, that's a new feature, the last one, in the data lifecycle management, we might say, if a user is in an elevated risk situation, defined through the inside the risk level configuration, we might say, well, now we decide that he is deleting data, nice, but we will preserve the data in a way that we can still show in an indisputable way, well, you deleted the data and we kept the data without you knowing, and we kept the data because we saw some strange behavior from your side. And that is the adaptive protection. Now, the adaptive protection, keep in mind, requires inside the risk level solution, which is not part of Business Premium. Remember my slide, it's an extra thing you need to buy. Information protection, on the other hand, is included in Business Premium. I have that in a slide. Voilà. Some examples of how, the same example, if you would use that for Jane, you would first of all use information protection to discover and auto-label intellectual property. You would, through a data leakage policy, detect that she's doing all these things and actually report against that and use that. And that's a nice thing I've done in a slide. That information can then also pop up in XDR and can play a role. Let me give the screenshots. Here you see Word. In this Word document, for some reason, because of what is in the document, automatically the system will actually label that document with a certain sensitivity label, meaning it will be encrypted, and in this case it will also be available to decrypt and read by certain people. Meaning if you copy that file to an USB stick, that policy, that sensitivity label is still embedded in the file. Whatever you do, you cannot decrypt it. You will need to have a group membership of a certain group, for instance, and then only for you, the file will be decryptable. And that's what's shown here. Another example, at the level of SharePoint site, for instance, or at the level of a document library, you could say all documents in this document library, or even in that communication site, should automatically be labeled with high confidential. Or what they show here is rather like a project obsidian. So we might have defined what they call a sensitive info type, custom sensitive info type for a specific secret project in your organization. There are all kinds of techniques of doing that in Purview. It's part of the information protection solution. And then you say, well, automatically, whenever some file appears in that SharePoint site where we recognize that this file is discussing that project because of that SID type, you should automatically encrypt it, not attach that label actually, not something somebody manually does through Word, but it will automatically be applied, meaning that only users that are part of a certain group will be able to open the file. It's even possible that users are having access to this community site. From a security perspective, that SharePoint access for that user is possible. But that user, if he tries to open that file and he's not part of a certain group specified in that sensitivity label, he will not be able to decrypt the file. That's how it works. And here you see then an example of an alert that automatically gets generated by inside the risk management policy you created, that tells actually that a certain user is actually doing strange things like exfiltrating activities with prioritized content. And you see that this specific user is doing that many times compared to his teammates. Shared SharePoint files externally, same thing, or all kinds of exfiltration activities. So this is clearly an example of a user. You see all risk factors that contribute to this system creating this alert. And the point is, this alert can then be used as part of the other systems to decide what to do. And this is interesting. You can then go into detail for that user and see what this user has been doing. It's again, here you see, for instance, that on April the 21st, he has been accessing a lot of sensitive files, which are, for instance, or already labeled or not labeled, but are recognized as files of a certain sensitivity type. Also one specific SharePoint. So depending on indeed that specific inside the risk management configuration, we see that happening. And you see let me click, you see then here, and there you see the system doing the correlation. You see here from bottom to top, on May the 19th, he did download a lot of files from a SharePoint. He did rename the files, or she, I don't know. She did then print some of the files. She deleted files, and then she cleaned up all her traces to make sure that nobody sees that she did do it. So the system is able to correlate these things as being suspicious, and that's the whole thing that you see here. And even there is the communication risk. That's another solution actually. Communication risk is yet another solution that you could activate, and also that then could. That's when she was threatening. Jane was threatening colleagues through email about, you are not going to do this or that, or I will this or that, and that can also pop up into this visual representation of all user activities of that user. And then here you see an example of defense evasion, so hiding your evidence, your behavior. That is an example of what you could do there. And here you see then an overview of all kinds of adaptive protection that was this user. Well, what it shows is that this user on 25 days ago came into an elevated risk level situation. And what it shows in this slide, this screenshot, is that, and it doesn't show it, but here you see like this is actually the screen where you would define what elevated risk level is, what moderate risk level is, and what minor risk level is. By clicking on edit, it's not shown in the screenshots, but in the next slide you would then specify elevated risk level is when somebody does do a download, and by saying in the past 7 days, and you stay in that level for 30 days, and that's typically what you say. So this is like the page through which you would then configure all these situations that needs to lead to an elevated risk level. And what it shows here, this is actually an example of a DLP policy, yeah? And in that DLP policy, we specify as an extra condition that if the user is in an elevated risk level, yeah, then the DLP policy should apply. So this is an example, you don't see the full story, but about credit card numbers and US Social Security numbers. And actually, these are two examples of SIDs or sensitive info types. Again, you can create your own SID types, and it's full of SID types also for Belgian market. Don't think it's about US only stuff. And it's quite easy to create your own SIDs. Yeah? And you define actually the kind of data that is important for your organization. You say if we see that kind of information, and the user is in an elevated risk level, in that case, and you don't see it on the slide, in that case, we block, and that's what you see here. We block, for instance, the clipboard. We block the USB device. You see here that you can actually specify, that's what this slide shows. If it's about that kind of SIDs, and the user is in an elevated risk level, then all these things are blocked. While for other users, this DLP policy might not be applied. So, or for this same user yesterday, he could do all these things, but because he came into this elevated risk situation that we defined, he comes. That is an example of, and here you see yet another example. Here you see a conditional access, and there you see something new. You can specify inside the risk, and it's preview here, and there also you can say elevate. You can have then a conditional access policy where you have an extra condition related to inside the risk, and you could say, well, in that case, I want the user to sign or to read the usage terms, and the usage terms could be very specific to your organization, making the user aware of shared responsibility and making him aware he's about to do something that is against the policy, but if he wants to do it, fine, but he needs to be aware of his responsibility. Could be something you implement in a conditional access policy. And here the last one is also in preview. You could even have in a DLP, the information lifecycle management solution, where you say, if the user is in such a situation of elevated risk, we will actually at runtime decide to retain data and retain data even while the user is trying to delete stuff. That's what they showed. So it's a lot of information here. You see even that you can connect it to HR systems, and that the fact that the user will be resigned and it's already planned can also be taken into account for the system to conclude. Voila. And here that's the last slide. Here you see then another slide. What you see here, it's actually the XDR portal, but now we have a look at an incident. And the point of this slide is that in the context of this incident, we see all kinds of alerts. And what alerts are popping up here? The DLP policy alert. So remember, we could have a DLP policy that is being triggered because of insider risk management. The fact that this policy was triggered and was activated for that specific user is also seen as an alert in the XDR portal, and contributes to the correlation into an incident that then needs the follow-up of a security professional, or where you could have under investigations, an automated investigation where automatically new evidence is being collected, and you could, of course, have recommended actions, but you could also have a system that automatically takes action. So it's a lot of information, I realize that. But just be aware that that is the topic of data security, and it even becomes more relevant because of AI. Here are 3 examples of AI, and also again, the demo screenshots are nice. User creates a document without proper access controls, making it easy for... So imagine that I'm creating a document about a project, and even if it's a very secret project, I'm not using any predefined label. I even see a policy tip that tells me, you need to, I don't do it. I'm neglected. I just create a document and I save it in a SharePoint. Now another user has no access to the SharePoint file, or has access to the SharePoint file, but she typically would not go to the SharePoint file. That's the second one. But she hears me talking about that project, and she doesn't what she's talking about, and she goes to Copilot. She says, I heard somebody talking about this project. Can you tell me more about it? And Copilot says, yes, I can tell you, because there is a document on that SharePoint. It's not protected. It should have been protected because of the label that did not, it was not appended. And Copilot will give that information. And then another user negligently shares sensitive data. The same user, Jane maybe, might say, wow, interesting, this document. I'm going to talk with ChatGPT now. I'm going to upload that document and ask for a summary. So this is typically what you could do today with Copilot or with ChatGPT if you do not have data security in place, which always starts with, remember, information protection. Start to have a discovery of what kind of information you have, what SIP types you have. Start to create your own SIP types, and start to create DLP policies and labels, and start to create insider risk policies. And in the screenshots that you see here, so it's an example, but let me show immediately screenshots. Here is a SharePoint site, and here, in contrary with the other SharePoint site I showed you, here at the level of the SharePoint document library, I think here, at this level, we did specify that all documents in that document library should automatically have a label applied of confidential internal. So whoever uploads a document over there, it gets applied. So it's protected. Now, as a result, if I try to ask a question, and this time Jane asks a question, she will get an answer like, I'm sorry, but I couldn't find any specific information. Well, the system Copilot could, but because the file this time is in a protected folder, where automatically the label was attached because of an automatic sensitivity label policy, it got attached. Or here an example. Now here you see how it looks like, the DLP policy. This is the DLP policy that is responsible for that. If the user tries to, well, that's another DLP policy. If the user tries to, imagine that she can still get the document somehow and tries to upload it to ChatGPT through the browser, because of the fact that you block it here, she will not be able to do so. And that's what you see here in the small demo. Imagine that she still can access the document, even with the policy. Imagine that she can access the document and the policy is encrypted, but she is allowed to open it, and she copy this like this. She copy up over there. Have a look what happens. Even while she do it in Copilot, in ChatGPT, but she does it here in one of the supported browsers, not just Edge. It could also be Safari or Chrome if you install an additional add-on. And here, actually, because of the DLP policy, the ChatGPT cannot be used, and that's what is shown here. Now, as part of Purview, there is something that is called AI Hub. So you have all kinds of solutions. One of them is AI Hub. It used to be called AI posture security or posture management, but it's renamed now to AI Hub. And the idea with AI Hub, the screenshot is not correct, by the way. It tells us here about, this one is probably on top of is correct. It tells me, for instance, in this case, about almost 3,000 unlabeled files in total 30 SharePoint sites, for which we see a lot of Copilot information is used. So Copilot typically finds a lot of information in these sites, but we see in these sites that we see 3,000 unlabeled files. Maybe that's okay, but at least you should be aware of it. What it tells you, the fact that it's not labeled might not be okay, because we might still see that it's for instance an offer to a customer, or it's an HR document, because of the system being able to recognize sensitive info types. So even if you did not label stuff, things can be recognized as sensitive. Now, in that case, the AI Hub will report about that and make you aware that you might maybe create a DLP policy for that, or DLP policy, or you might create an auto labeling policy that will automatically label all documents, as you saw in the screenshot before, with a certain policy. That's what is us here. It shows you all kinds of other reports, tell you about what are the generative AI tools being used, by whom, and most importantly, where we see also sensitive information being involved. Or this one tells you, depending on the insider risk severity, we somehow come to the conclusion, in this one, yeah, you don't see it in this one, no, the left one, you see somehow is that in non-Copilot generative apps, we see many more. The question is, auto-labeling only included? Auto-labeling, good question. Well, auto-labeling, server-side auto-labeling is not included in E3, is not included in Business Premium. You only have auto-labeling as part of applications. So if you are in Word and Excel, you can have the system recognize it, and because of a policy, auto-label the document while you're creating it or while you're saving it. That's auto-labeling. But if you want to have auto-labeling on a SharePoint site, for instance, that is not included in Business Premium. I have a slide on that later. For that, you need the add-on, the information protection add-on. That also already appeared in my slides. That's a good question. I'm not going to go too much in detail, but auto-labeling, there's client-side auto-labeling and there's service-side auto-labeling. Client-side auto-labeling is included in Business Premium. That's very good news. And with the policy tip, you can make sure that it happens. But if you want to have auto-labeling services side, SharePoint, for instance, or Exchange, but automatically, in bulk, that is a feature that is not included. Voilà. But I'm not going to discuss all this. You see all kinds of policies that you can apply. It comes with the directory of policies. Well, I'm going to skip this. This is more related to data governance. If you want to make sure that in Fabric or in SQL Server or in Excel, you can also start to apply labels or have automatic labeling, or even having inside risk management in these applications. That's a possibility. And some advice getting started. So start with insider risk management. Think about sensitive data. Use and create your own custom sets. That's not difficult. I do that quite often for demos. It's quite nice to do that. Investigate the default trainable classifiers. And already with this, especially with the data explorer, you can actually see a lot of how data is being used in your system. And then understand insider risk is also something you do in the first step. Turn on adaptive protection, but then you need, of course, insider risk analytics. You don't have that by default, and make them make them, based on the analytics, implement the recommended data, and then start to create DLP policies. And step 2 is really about that. It's start to label and create specific labels, start to create fine-tuned policies that start to block things and not just audit things. That's the whole idea. I'm going to skip that, but you understand the point. Voilà, and once more, not all customers will need that, but you see here, we discussed first of all security add-on, the middle one, but information protection and insider risk management are absolutely very valuable add-ons that you might want to evaluate. And especially these two do not require that all users have them. That's something to keep in mind. For some users, I think it's a no-brainer. People in management, people in people management roles, people in HR roles and so on, they should be using these things, or for them, we should be using these things. Keep that in mind. You will want to have a discussion about that. It's an old slide I still love. If you think about information protection and governance, about knowing your data, it's about information types and SITs and labels. It's about protecting with labels. It's about data protection, and it's about information lifecycle management, and also the risk inside the risk management. So I'm going to skip all that. It's very nice slides I created a while ago about only this part, about all the things you typically need to do. Next to the other things related to device management, identity and access management, and app management, here you see all of them. I'm here only focusing on the first one. And the first one is about information protection. And the point is that the other things, because of Business Premium, are also all available. That's just the point of this slide. When you think about security, you will need all these things. But specifically for information protection, this is what you typically will want to do. The top line is about knowing your data, starting to use all the things I just discussed, and then the data classification, data labeling, data access control, are all the things you can do because of Business Premium to start protecting data in a more proactive way. And this is what I wanted to show you. For each of these features, there is a service description, and I wanted to highlight those service descriptions that are relevant in the context of Business Premium. Especially if you add on top of, in standard, you don't have all these things. That's the whole point. And on top of that, you can always, just for information, go to that web URL that you see on top there, where you see the business plans. And there you see for premium, what is included. See, what is included. I'm not going to discuss all that. And the yellow one is info protection. The strange thing is, I checked it yesterday, the E5 security add-on is still not listed here. It should. I don't know why. I double checked again yesterday evening, but the two others that I just discussed are available here as two add-ons. And read this, where I tried to summarize a little bit. So the highly recommended one for the automatic, I should say, service side labeling, that requires indeed this extra license. If you do not have that, you only have client side automatic labeling, which is also fine, but for the more sophisticated environments, it might be an option. On top of that, you could add insider risk management, which then also gives you, most importantly, is it adaptive protection, which is quite nice. You see, there is a lot. And that's just another slide, again, like I showed you before, but then for compliance features, comparing Business Premium E3, and then again shows you how the compliance add-on, this is another add-on actually, which actually combines insider and information protection. And remember this slide with these two parts. And there you see then at the bottom how indeed the three things, internal risk management, inside risk management, data loss prevention, and information protection, together with the security, the first solution play, These two things actually, it's a lot of information. I'm aware of that. By the way, if this is completely new to you and absolutely new to you, I absolutely recommend that you start by going for the security fundamentals training. It's actually a very easy an exam. Do that exam as a first step, and then gradually go through these slides. There are a lot of slides, and learn about that. Start to be able to talk about it, start to demo it. It might be overwhelming to read about all this. And this is just two solution plays. The other solution plays, I still have 20 minutes. I will not be able to discuss all of them. But this is also interesting. It's something I found a while ago. Interactive guides, really nice to play with. Play with this. These are things, I'm not going to click on it, but these are click through demos with voice. It's really, really good. It will help you to learn about all the things we just did do. Absolutely recommend it. Great stuff to learn about Purview. And I did do also the SC 400, it's now 401 exam. That's a difficult exam. The Purview exam also did. That's why I'm able to talk so much about it, I guess. It's not an easy exam, but worthwhile doing. It took me a while to fully understand this, and I'm learning. Voilà. These are the two most important solution plays. There are 4 other solution plays. And now I'm going to go through of them in 20 minutes. The first one is a modern security operation with maps to basically the hero product Sentinel. Sentinel is a cloud-native SIEM, which also includes SOAR, security, orchestration, and automatic response, I think is what it stands for. Yeah, security, orchestration, automated response, and security incident and event management. So understand what it is. And indeed, Sentinel is actually doing that by collecting, first of all, as much as broad information about things that happen. And then, just like with XDR, we detect things because of the correlation stuff. We have automatic investigation or investigations because of having an incident asking you to investigate, and even respond, and even have automated response. And actually, what I want to show, one slide, this slide I liked from the decks that I found yesterday. This is not a full list, but of all the connectors you have in Sentinel. So you can connect Sentinel to many, many other systems. So it's, of course, and in the screenshots I show you, you also explicitly have to connect Defender XDR or Defender for endpoint. You have explicitly connected, but you can connect with many other non-Microsoft services to really have a very sophisticated SIEM to start with, and even a sophisticated SOAR to a next level. It provides you all these things. I'm not going to discuss that, but it gives you all the things that you see here that you use. And I think for an SMB organization, you typically will not want to go there. But again, from some perspective, some organizations, large organizations, they might want to start using it. Anyway, Sentinel is a free product, but you pay for, one, the storage. Don't underestimate that part. And you pay, of course, for the machine learning that is taking place, the pattern recognition. So that is compute. These two together can be quite expensive, especially if you start to have connecting a lot of data and a lot of policies that do their work. And the demo, well, it's not really a demo, but it's a demo I did do a while ago to start. You start by creating a workspace. Behind the scenes, you need a log analytics workspace in Azure. Yeah. In that log analytics workspace, you can then, in Sentinel, you then go to the content hub, and that's where you see all these things that you can connect to. And here specifically, I'm going for Microsoft Defender for Cloud. And the one that I still didn't discuss, but no, it's Microsoft Defender for endpoint. No, it's a Defender for Cloud. So I install it, and then it's a bundle of a solution actually, and then I actually activated the Defender for Cloud for my tenant. And once that is done, we can start collecting information from Defender for Cloud. Defender for Cloud, that's the bridge, is related to this solution play number 4 already. And the hero product there is Defender for Cloud. And Defender for Cloud is what they call a cloud native what is it again? A cloud native application protection platform. Yeah, cloud native application protection platform. Yeah, and actually what it is a system that allows you to natively, first of all, connect to all Azure workloads that you might have, virtual machines, containers, whatever you can think of, SQL Server instances, but also SQL Server instances, virtual machines running on premises through Arc, or virtual machines and SQL servers in containers even if you want, or Kubernetes clusters that run in Google or Amazon. So it's the idea of multi-cloud is bring in whatever workload into the picture and to also start basically monitoring whatever other workloads apart from the ones that we just discussed with XDR, the Microsoft 365 related workloads. With indeed Defender for Cloud, you can start monitoring whatever other workloads. There is virtually no diffs. And then you have actually 3 things that this system does. I think that's my next slide. That is 3 things. So let me skip maybe that slide and immediately go to the slide. So let's start with this one. Yeah. The first one is, oops, my screen. Where's my button here? So the first part is continuously reduce the risk. So the idea is what they call CSPM. CSPM is the abbreviation for Cloud Security Posture Management. So it's the Defender for Cloud proactive